Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us on our first Griffith Futures Scholarship Professional Development webinar for 2022, where we will be looking at the power of networking. My name is Claire, I'm the Alumni Relations Officer here at Griffith, and I'm usually the one behind all the emails that you receive, asking you and reminding you to join up to this event and look at these opportunities. I'd first like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the various lands on which those of us in Australia are respectively located, pay my respects to elders past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. In a few moments, I'm going to introduce you to our guest speaker, who's going to share with us her insights and experience around networking and why it is more important now more than ever. During the pandemic, the way in which we've been able to interact with each other has changed. In-person meetups and networking opportunities have been incredibly difficult and almost impossible. So this interactive session will allow you to brush up on your networking skills with practical scenarios and coaching tips. Following the session, you will have the opportunity to register to attend one of our exclusive in-person alumni networking events here on the Gold Coast, where you'll be able to put into practice some of the skills that you've learned today. These events are in such high demand with our graduates that we're actually only able to offer out 10 places. In fact, this Gold Coast event reached capacity in about 2 hours with 150 people registered already. So in order to do it fairly, we will give out the places on a first come first served basis. A link to register for this event will be sent out at the end of this session. So just a reminder on some webinar tips. If you've got any questions for our presenter, you can ask these in the Q&A panel that you'll see on your screen. If you would like to remain anonymous, then just tick the anonymous box before posting the question, and questions will be answered at the end of Jenny's presentation. I also need to let you know that this session is being recorded and content will be shared with you at a later date. So I am now pleased to introduce our presenter today, Jenny Longrigg, who is a career development consultant here at Griffith. She has extensive experience in professional and relationship building, coaching, networking and mentoring. And today we are grateful to her for joining us to share some of her knowledge and expertise. So I'm going to hand you over to Jenny and ask her to unmute her microphone.
Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you so much, Claire. Lovely to be here, and thank you for the warm introduction. You've sort of saved a bit of my job here, but I'll introduce myself to everybody. I understand there's quite a number of you online, so it's lovely to virtually meet you all. But my name is Jenny Longrigg, and I'm Alumni Relations Manager so I used to be in the office there with Karen and Claire, and I've seen the amazing work of what the scholarship program offers to you. But now I'm here today in my role as a career development consultant here at Griffith University. I work with students on a one-on-one basis, and I also work with academics and teach into curriculum around employability skills. Everything from setting you up on the career and the study pathway, to helping with decision-making processes, right through to applying for positions, looking for opportunities, and then preparing yourself. So networking really fits into this piece. So I'm delighted to be here. I'll tell you a little bit more about the services that we offer at the end, but let's get started about networking. So, oops. Technology is always fun, so hopefully you're on my second slide. I also would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're all respectively located today. And I extend that respect to past, present and emerging leaders, and to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders joining us on today's session. So, learning outcomes, we're at a university here. So let's talk about what you're going to get out of today's session. You're going to get an understanding of why networking is important for career building, And you're going to get to know when and how to build these relationships through networking. So let's start with a definition. So a definition that we'll use for today is creating a group of acquaintances and associates, keeping it active through regular communication for mutual benefit. So you'll see that I've highlighted some of those parts of our definition there. Keep it active, regular communication and mutual benefit. So as we go through, we'll see why this is really important. So when we talk about being active with our network, it's vital to our career growth. So it's often confused with some people around selling ourselves, selling, the products that perhaps we're working with. And it's actually about building long-term relationships and having a good reputation that we have over a long period of time. So your network, I want you to think as we go through this session, maybe you've got a pen and paper handy, start to jot down who is in your network. And we'll start to think about, we tend to work straight towards, well, who do I work in an office with? Or who is my boss? Or who's my potential boss that I might have met at an event? But think a little bit broader than that. Dig a little bit deeper in terms of, well, who are your friends? Who's the family members? Who are the friends of the friends? Because that's a network. When we think about a spider's web and we're right in the middle, a network really branches out and out and out. So there's some great activities you can do around this as to, starting to identify who's in the network. And then, of course, we want to start to think about who do we want to bring into that network and maybe catch into our spider's web, because those are the people that are going to help us with our career growth. So another important thing to remember is networking is a learnable skill. We're not born with this ability to connect with people straight away, but we can definitely learn how to use it and use it effectively. The other thing I'd like to mention is there's no better personality types for networking. So we all have our own personalities that make up who we are. Some of us are introverted, some of us are extroverted, some of us have different parts to our personality. And extroverts aren't necessarily the best networkers, introverts aren't the best, but it's something we can learn. And as we go through, we'll talk about how we learn and how we practice. So moving on to our next slide. So why should we network? And I'm sure you've got some ideas, and I know that Karen and Claire have done some amazing work with you around, coming up, well, they've been doing some work for you around coming up a program of ways that you can enhance yourself while you're here at Griffith outside of those discipline-specific skills that you're learning, so transferable skills and personal skills, and obviously networking is one of those. So why network? So it's the importance of relationships, the access to information that you can get through a network. It's the access to those opportunities, whether that be job opportunities, internship opportunities, part-time work, whatever it might be. And obviously you can develop a professional reputation. So all of these points here contribute to your career development and they increase your chances of getting work. As I said, those opportunities that will come up. So I'm going to pose a question and I'm not going to answer it just yet, but I want you to have a little bit of a think about it. So, do you know the percentage of jobs that are unadvertised? So I'll leave that as a hanging statement. No need to write in the questions and answers, but just have a think for yourself. Again, if you've got a pen and paper, jot it down and you can see if you can give yourself a tick when we get there. I'm going to tell you some more reasons. So we can have a support network, we can discuss our common challenges and opportunities, and that opens the door to valuable guidance. It also builds confidence, so stepping outside our comfort zone, we can build those social skills, we can get our professional identity. At the moment we're probably, many of us would be wearing, or many of you on today's session would be wearing that hat of a student. So we want to start thinking, well, what happens after I'm a student? So what's my professional identity? And these support networks are going to be able to help you, guide you through that. And it's a predictor of our job search success as well. So we can, start to sort of see, well, what's out there in our network? Or who would I like to be like? And obviously it provides access to that hidden job market. So I mentioned before how many of these jobs are unadvertised. And did you know that for every 1,470 jobs that are advertised, only one of them gets the offer? So there's a lot out there. There's so I haven't really answered that question properly, but there's 20 to 30% of jobs aren't advertised. So what are we going to do to stand out in the market when we're coming out potentially with the same degree with others, same experience, all of those same pieces? How are we going to get ourselves further ahead? And that's where our network can really help us. So it is very important to start building this network now, wherever you are within your study career. You may be first year, you may be second, third, coming up to fourth or final year. And at every stage, it's important to network so that we can put ourselves into the job. We get a sticky stage, and I'm not sure if you saw the email and thought, oh, who is this woman and what is going to tell that network idea? I think we've all really felt that. You know, why do people, you know, sort of feel this way? So we need to break that down a little bit, and I'm going to give you some tips a little bit later. We want to think about why don't they like it? But there are two types of networking. So there's the one that's instrumental to advance our career. That's for those people that we're talking to about our internships, our part-time work, or our future aspirations into the discipline or industry we want to get into. We've also got the other side of networking, and that's where we're building social circles and, you know, potential relationships or friendships and those kind of things. So there's research studies that have been done around instrumental networking, and like I said, making us feel, you know, a bit icky, not so great, while the personal networking leads to those feelings of satisfaction. So when you go to a barbecue and you meet a new friend and you feel satisfied. And so it's really interesting if we were to sort of put these different hats on as to how we can maybe change the way we're feeling and we're going into these settings. So I've popped a little why there. We see ourselves as moral beings, and networking, like everything else we do, needs to fit into our overarching narrative. And for each of us, it's very different. But if we were to think about, oops, sorry, I'm just going to get my slide there. If we were to think about networking and people that we potentially will meet in a different way. So this little diagram, you'll see you, a friend of a friend, and then someone you're looking for. And that's that little chain that we will see as we're networking our way through. We're looking for something, and we just need to work through those steps. So when we consider these facts, I think, sorry, I do apologise, my notes have just jumbled up. I'm actually going to go to the next slide. And I'm not going to play this video for you now, but Claire has said that she'll make sure that it's included in the slides that come out for you after the session. But it's a great little video, just a reminder of why these opportunities, you know, are so important and how they are actually then attached to people. So now we said that we were going to have a little chat about anxiety around networking. So little tips on here to think about when we are feeling that stage. And I think it's true. I mean, Claire mentioned I've been a relationship builder for a long time. And I did mention to you I was the Alumni Relations Manager of the university for many years. So I was involved in many of the events and the networking opportunities that we've set up for alumni over the years, both here in Australia and overseas. But of course, I'm a human too, and I've been on that side. And I still remember one of my first times at a networking event, and I had just finished university. Oh no, I think I was just during university actually. And I went in and I thought, yes, I can do this. And as I walked up to a group of people who were having a wonderful conversation and laughing, I thought, I'll laugh too, and then I'll be in the group. And I laughed, but the joke had finished and everybody dispersed at that same time. And oh yes, I felt those feelings that we all dread. So those things will happen. But what I'd like to remind you is the more that we do this, the more that we practice, the more that we build our confidence, and we know how to pick ourselves up. And it might be a quick trip and have a look at the view, gather your thoughts and come back into the room. Because I did feel like walking, and I did. I found a buddy and I said, hey, let's buddy up for this session, and I got through it, and you can too. But the more practice we do, the better we're going to feel. Okay, so some tips on there. Halt the comparisons. So connect with people that you genuinely like. And look, we do that quite often. We have this imposter syndrome, they call it, where you look around and think, what am I doing here? Am I really supposed to be here? Am I good enough to be in this room? You know, who's this person? They look more successful than me. Maybe they're more attractive. Maybe they've got more skills. And we tend to sort of go in and this imposter, should I be here feeling? And you definitely should be there. You've identified this as an opportunity for you to go to a particular networking event. So you really need to use that opportunity and stay in the room. So, you know, thinking those, well, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen for me as I walked over to those group of people happened and they walked away. But what am I going to do next? So thinking, you know, sometimes you do think about what's the worst thing that could happen, and really it's probably not going to happen. So focus on making other people feel comfortable, and that was a lot of what I would do in those alumni events with students and alumni. Make people feel comfortable. So, hi Karen, how are you? It's so great to have you here. You know, I've just met someone else. And an introduction can happen. Make others feel comfortable and you'll feel comfortable too. Everybody's sort of there for the same reasons and having those same feelings, I'm sure. And I've harped on about this, and I know that Karen and Claire will be as well, about practice. So practice makes perfect, it really does. And sometimes it's about practicing with, you know, a colleague, and I like to call them buddy buddies when I go to an event and I look at someone and say, will you be my buddy buddy? If I get stuck, can I come to you? Can you save me? Can we just have a conversation about the food and I can gather myself again? So practice with your friends before you go, practice in front of the mirror, find Karen or Claire and practice with them. So a strong connection to purpose. And this is what's going to really help us with that self-confidence and not getting to those stages of anxiety. So when we think about our self-purpose, our connection to purpose, in networking we call it our personal brand. And I'm going to look across because I've got a quote that I love, and this is from Jeff Bezos, who's the founder of Amazon. And so he talks about your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And I think that's around reputation. What do you set up for yourself that when you're not there, what are others saying about you? So there's another one that I do like though, and that's by a Chinese philosopher, and his name's Lao Tzu. And it's at the center of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are and you know what you want. And that's really important, I believe, when you are going into a networking, that you really know who you are and what you're hoping to get out of these. And when you dig deep enough, you'll know what you're looking for. And that will really then set you up with this personal brand of how you're going to go into the room and what you're going to present and who you're going to attract during that time. So I'm going to go to my next slide, because now we know who we are and we're working on that. And again, might be a pen and paper before you go, because you'll want to start to get this information down. We can talk about the elevator conversation, sometimes known as the elevator pitch or the elevator speech. And for those of you that don't know, this is generally a 20 to 30 second introduction piece where you can use at a networking event or in any other opportunity to present yourself and let the person that you're speaking with know about who you are, what do you stand for, and maybe what you're looking for. So we want to be a little bit careful with that. Networking isn't always, as we go back to our original definition, it's about mutual benefit. It's just this chance to have an opportunity to connect with another human, another professional within that space. We're not always walking up and seeing people as a job-giving device. They're not always going to say, great to meet you, here's a job. Build that connection and those opportunities will come, like we talked about. So I did have a little, actually, sorry, this was a link, and I'm going to again let Claire have a go at sending this to you after for you to have a look at. There are some more resources available on our careers and employment website. So if you are interested in, learning this skill and developing this, have a look at the resources that we have. But essentially, maybe I'll give you an introduction, and that's what I jotted something down. So if I was walking into the room, I'd be keeping it to my 20-30 seconds, and I might be saying something like, "Hi, my name is Jenny. I'm a career and development. I'm a careers. I might start that one again. Hi everyone, my name is Jenny. I'm the career development consultant at Griffith University. I primarily work with our Griffith Health area, working with students and academics to prepare our graduates with employability skills." Wow. On the spot there, I probably would even include something, and I feel really blessed in this space. It's part of my nature to be helping, and I really feel I'm making a difference. So once again, maybe I need to practice that one, but practice makes perfect. Think about who you are, what is it you're doing, what is your life path and your personal brand, and how are they all coming together in this particular moment for you at this event? Okay, so practice makes perfect, and I'll be practicing that later. So some little tips for us here. Stop the small talk. Like we said, we want to about everyone else around us. We want to focus in, well, who am I? So don't worry about, being clever and witty, and just be yourself. Come from a sincere place and you'll attract the right people. So being authentic, and you're encouraging that authenticity with others as well. So listen, be present, and ask thoughtful, open-ended questions. One of the key things here is listening. So active listening. So when you are talking with somebody and they're coming back to you with their life story, their life purpose, their personal brand, really listening to those things, because you want to remember that conversation so that you can pick up little things that are going to continue the conversation. You'll also want to try to remember some of those pieces so that when you go back to them after and you go home and you're writing to everyone that night and saying, "Great to meet you at the Gold Coast Alumni Networking event," that you're saying, "It was so great to meet you, and I really loved hearing about, the volunteer program that you've got running in your organisation." Those little pieces that are going to make you stand out. Again, being authentic and genuine with the things that you want in that space too. So listening is really important. The next thing is, and I'm going to take a little break for 1 second. So our next thing is to be conscious of body language. Oh, and active listening. There we go. I must have highlighted that because it is very important. So active listening cues, we want to think about non-verbal ones. So those things that we aren't actually saying, but we are showing that we're active listening. So we're leaning in a little bit further. We're tipping our head. "Oh yeah, that's interesting." We may be using some facial expressions. And we're not all the same. We don't all use the same body language. As you can see, I use my hands quite a bit when I'm talking. But, I might be saying, "Yeah, I think that's a really great point." I try not to point at people, but yeah, that's really interesting what you're saying. We're smiling, we're having eye contact, we're doing all of those things with people that make them feel like they are being listened to. And then of course you've got the verbal side where you can say, "I can see what you mean. Can you give me an example of that?" Or again saying, "Oh, so that volunteer program, that sounds really interesting." Using some verbal things obviously shows we're listening, and it shows people that what they're saying is interesting and special, and that's really important too. Again, we want to be authentic. We want others to be authentic. We want to encourage others to open up as well. So etiquette, excuse me. So we want to use those observational skills to break the ice. We want to use some safe topics. We want to sort of maybe steer away from maybe politics, maybe religion, some of those things that we talk about, like dinner conversations, when you don't quite know people at that stage. And so we want to think about that in that networking room as well. How are we going to keep it on task, on topic? Obviously, if you're studying politics and you're speaking with somebody, of course, that's absolutely, your world. But for others, we want to sort of just say to some things that can be nice and safe. We're just building a connection at this stage. We're not looking to sort of deep dive into big conversations. We do want to keep it relatively informal, but we want to be respectful as well. And so using our titles at, the first time we meet people, we'll be walking around a room. Generally, people have a name badge on. Have a look on there. If there's a professor, we really want to be using those titles. It's a respectful thing. If we meet doctors, they've worked really hard to get that title. Again, using that title is of respect. So we touched on this before, but we want to sustain that connection. So going back to our original slide where we talked about maintaining active, regular communication. So we want to follow up promptly. We want to fulfill promises that we may have made. We want to organise how we're going to stay in touch and how we're going to network together. We want to keep contacts updated, and we want to thank them for their time as well. So as I mentioned, going at maybe home that evening, the next day, whatever it might be, schedule it into your diary and you reply to those people. Find them on LinkedIn, send them an email. These days we don't tend to use business cards anymore. We're all quite sustainable, but remembering people's names. And as I mentioned before, when we were talking about active listening and what did somebody say, what is it that you could remember from that conversation that will make you stand out when you reach back out to them? And a little tip, here we go, tip. I used to have, and I'll see if I can show you my phone. So I used to have my phone a clear cover. And some colleagues of mine used to do this too. And we used to slip into the back of our phone a little post-it note. And I would have written down there the names of the people that I want to meet. Or I would see at the front of the room a guest list and I think, oh, I really would like to speak to that person from that organisation. And I'd jot it down so I could remember. And as I would walk around the room, I'd look down at my phone and I'd be looking at people's name badges. Oh, there's John Smith. And I'd head on over. After I've had my conversation with John Smith in the early days, when my brain was, still sort of full of these networking type things, I might slip away to the bathroom or somewhere back of house and I'd jot down a few notes about what I said to John Smith or what he said to me. And he might have said about a volunteer program. He might have said that a colleague of his was leaving soon, and I might jot those things down. So when I reached back out to him that evening, and I tended to do it at night time, sometimes I'd save the messages and send them the next morning. While it's all beautiful and fresh in my mind, I'd send an email to him and say, thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful to meet you at the event last night, John. And I wondered if there'd be an opportunity that we could catch up again, because I'd really enjoy or would appreciate hearing a bit more about the program you mentioned that you're offering at your work. So sustaining that connection, finding a reason why you would stand out, and making that connection. And I think it's also important to mention here that, yes, we are networking and we want to have those genuine connections, but there's nothing to be said that you can't reach out to somebody you haven't quite met at an event as well. You may have had someone on your list and they couldn't have come for any reason, or you just didn't get a chance to talk to them. You could still connect with them on LinkedIn. Hi Claire, I was at the Gold Coast Alumni networking event last night. I missed seeing you there. I was hoping to have the opportunity to speak with you. Is there any chance you might be able to, spare me 15 minutes? Because I've got a few questions I was hoping to, talk to you about, or I'd love to hear more about your career journey and how you got to where you are. So that's sustaining our connection after we've left the room. We've done some beautiful work in the room, so now how are we going to keep those networks? Okay, so now where are we going to do all these amazing things? Where can we network? Obviously, you're here at university as a student. We have lecturers that we are aspiring to or working with. So our lecturers, potentially you're part of some of the clubs and societies offered on campus or online. Those people have that, shared common interest with you, so that's a great starting place. We've got classmates, we've got people within our degree, we've got people who are doing particular courses with us at the same time. We've got people in programs like this scholarship program, maybe opportunities for you to meet up together. Apologies, I'm going to take another sip of water. Okay, so we've also got our survival job. That's what we think of when we're students. How do we get by? How do we pay for our meals? That's our casual employment. So we've got people we can network there. Professional associations. So I encourage you to have a look at the associations that are around for you in your particular discipline and degree. I know you're from all different areas. And we have some great resources again in careers and employment, and we can tell you about some of the professional associations that you might want to consider. They tend to be for professionals in that space, but they do offer discounted and quite often free memberships for students. So that's a great space to be able to sort of get into. They do online events and AGMs. So any volunteer or community work that you're doing, great space again. Networking functions. So obviously Karen and Claire are setting you up with some, but keep your eye out for other things that are happening at Griffith, both on the social scene and also on that professional side too. And then you've got your online communities, so your personal social medias, your Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitters and those kind of things. So basically anywhere, just about anywhere you can find a network. So just keep looking out. Again, if you did get that pen and paper at the beginning and you'd started to sort of spiderweb out with people, think about those spots that I've popped on there, and you'll have the slides after as well. You know, which gaps are you filling? Are you full of all your friends, or are you full of all your classmates? Think about the lecturers and the other spaces too. So how to network. So we did cover some of these things, but I've put them down again as a bit of a tick sheet for you. So you actually give as much as you get. And I think that's true with probably any part of life. You'll find that with your studies, as much as you give into your studies, that the more you'll get out of them. So you're also thinking about how can you help others first. Again, we're building a relationship with people, and it comes to the final point, treating people, not job leads, not expecting that people will just hand us a job because we said we're about to graduate. Those other things we've talked about, professional associations, being an active listener in those spots. So some other things that you might want to think about is developing a strategy that works for you. So that's thinking about that practicing again, you know, buddy up with somebody, practice your elevator speech, think about, you know, the open-ended questions that, you know, you can ask to get some of that information that's going to make you stand out, that you're going to get a deep understanding of what that person that you're speaking with does, what do they value, how can you speak to them on more than just that simple level. So we want to think about our body language, we want to know where to go. We want to conduct informational interviews, and I'll just mention briefly what this is. Again, we have some resources, but I have, I suppose I've alluded to it a few times. An informational interview is generally when you're asking somebody within particularly a position that you might be interested in. You may see someone in a role and think, oh, that sounds good, I think I'd like to do that. And you would approach that person, and you might approach them, and so I might say to Karen, you're, you know, the marketing manager of the Office of Advancement at Griffith. That sounds like a really interesting role. I'd love to know more about it and how you got to where you are. Do you think I could have 15 minutes of your time? I've got some questions I'd like to ask you. And you would have some wonderfully written questions. Again, we've got resources, so don't feel like, oh, what questions? And you are the interviewer. The pressure is not on you, and it's not on Karen, you're making her feel comfortable, but you've got these questions and you say, wow, you know, I'd love to, you know, how did you get to that stage? And you came out with a, you know, an HR degree. How did you get into marketing? Or whatever it might be that you've found on their LinkedIn profile, or whatever it is. So that's a really great space to find out more about people, but also find out more about their career and how do you get to there. So that's I could do a whole topic on that one. But again, resources are available on the Careers and Employment website. So we can network on LinkedIn, and then we obviously talked about, you know, saying thank you and keeping that message going. So e-networking, Claire, you mentioned pandemic, and I mean, we all know that there's been a pandemic for the last few years. So we've all had to go online. It's a different space for us. These opportunities are fantastic now that we can get in front of people and do all of this thing. It's obviously, it would be remiss if I didn't talk about e-networking and what could happen in that space. So I've popped some tips here around, you know, what does your social media site say about you? And I want you to really think about that, because I also have a human resource background. And, you know, if you haven't Googled your name, I tell you, the recruiters that you're applying for jobs applying for jobs with will be. There's actually even software programs that are set up as your application comes in. On one panel, the recruiter will see your application, and the other panel, the software program has already brought up matches for social media sites that you might may be a match with you. So consider what you're putting out into the world, and is it something that a potential employer would be interested in? So I've popped that there for something to think about. We want to obviously keep on top of our privacy settings, you know, the permanency of online and the digital world, and our digital footprint is very important to keep in mind. Also, what does your email and your phone message say about you? Have a few things about those. So have a think about those as well. Again, in my HR days, I've seen all sorts of things like hot chicky babe at Hotmail, really not professional. So we're going professional. Let's think about that. You've got a great Griffith email address, which converts through to an alumni email address. It's professional. It shows your association to Griffith if you're still a student or a recent alumnus, or when you get out, you know, thinking about those professionalisms. So informational interviews, I have embedded something into here, and again I said that there's some resources there. I'm coming towards the end, so I've got some other helpful resources. Again, Claire will be able to share these with you. It's a lot easier to be able to share these after, and you can go through them at your own pace. But just some things you might like to consider. I've also popped this on here, and please don't despair. The date on there is a previous event that we've held, but we're going to be running this as a series, and it's going to be on the every month on a Thursday. Confidence. There's lots of different topics around self-belief, overcoming things. We'll be hearing career journeys of others who have gone on before you and been in your place. So it's open for all students. So the link is there, and then you're able to go through and see future episodes. So it's a new series, and I thought I would plug that for the team. And these are our services here. I've already mentioned them. Again, the slides are there, but in case you weren't aware, you do have free virtual or face-to-face appointments that are available for you with a career counsellor like myself and the rest of the team. We can talk to you on an individual basis around, you know, what's going on for you in your career development phase, whether it be study uncertainty, career uncertainty, looking for jobs and preparing and interviews. So feel free to use those services. They're available up until 4 months after graduation. So yeah, this is the time for you wherever you are in your career. Final slide here, and then I'm going to say question time. So Claire, I might invite you to tell us how we do questions. No, sorry, I do know how to do that. If you would like to ask a question, you can do that through the question box. And I'm just going to have a quick look here and see if anything has come through. Wow, okay, fantastic. There's some good questions here. Thank you. So Matthew, I'm going to read it out so in case anyone else can't see it. How do you build a network without looking like you're taking advantage of people? What if I bring less value to the relationship than them? Matthew, good question. So again, I think it's where you say you're looking like you're taking advantage of people. It's coming, if you're coming from an authentic space and an authentic place, it will come across sincere and you will open up. So what if you bring less value to the relationship? Again, maybe it's thinking around, you know, that you are there for a reason. Everybody has their own skills and their own skill level, and we all come with different skills as well. So whilst you maybe feel sometimes, you know, maybe not as valuable, your values may be in different spaces to others. So I think you're coming across authentic and encouraging others to do that as well. So thank you for that question. I'm going to go down. So sorry, Green, what is meant by observational skills, like starting a conversation on perhaps the area of work? Yes, so observational skills, you'd be observing what's happening. maybe you're using their name badge, maybe you're having a look at the organisation that they work for. You know, great to meet you. You work with the Department of Agriculture. Can I ask you a few more questions around that? Or maybe they're holding themselves in a particular way. So using, yeah, those observational skills for different things. I hope I've answered that one okay, Green. So yes, hello, I've gleaned properly that it's essential to spend your time and tolerance on LinkedIn. I joined it last year on advice and I couldn't get into it. I dedicated a lot of time to setting up my profile and I was given advice about how far back in time to go RE jobs, but I really, oops, I apologise, I can't see the end of that message. Oops, I'm not sure if I've missed something there. I can't quite see the end.
It's in the next box below it, Jen.
Oh, I do apologise. Thank you. But I really don't have a strong tolerance for social media. So is it impossible for me then? Oh, never impossible. Never impossible. Look, I think, you know, the pandemic has showed us that online we really do need to, you know, sort of lean into that space. But look, not everybody is on LinkedIn. There's lots of other ways we can connect with people, writing of emails, all of that space too, and hopefully, you know, this online, this in-person world that we're starting to sort of see a bit more of will be prevalent. And so hopefully, Nolene, you can get you know, in front of somebody, and it's a lot easier. I think we all tend to find it's a bit more difficult to sort of put yourself out there on a screen. We have some great tips on LinkedIn, and it sounds like you've been encouraged to do that. So feel free to reach out if there's some more resources that we can offer you in that space. I hope I've answered that. It's never impossible. Ryan, so how can introverts enjoy the networking process more? Okay, great. Thanks, Ryan. Look, with that one, I suppose I would say, sort of maybe it's the buddy system that might work for you. You know, having somebody else that's willing. I think that I sort of just coined that phrase, but, you know, feel free to use it. It's not copyright by me, but maybe teaming up with some other people who are feeling similar, maybe will help you enjoy the process a little bit more. Having somebody that, you know, you can start your event off with and then finish up the end of the evening with as well, and do a little debrief. I've done that before in events too. I've gone out and for dinner after the networking event with somebody and said, okay, well, let's just debrief. So I spoke to this person and this person, you know, what do you think I should, you know, how should I follow up? So I'm not sure if that speaks to you, Ryan, but maybe you could try, you know, teaming up with some others. So Cameron, any recommendations on networking in today's climate without being dependent on social media? Great question. Cameron, I think like we were sort of saying with Nolene's question there, we've had to lean into this online space more heavily than we ever have in previous years. So I think if that's not a space that we're sort of, oops, that question disappeared from my things. Oh no, it is there, sorry. So without being dependent on social media, I think it's about getting out, you know, with people then, you know, and using our other platforms, our emails. So Elizabeth, will there be any face-to-face networking events throughout the year? Yes, there will be. So Karen and Claire mentioned it, or I think it was Claire mentioned, sorry, at the beginning of the session around the Gold Coast networking event, and there's that opportunity for you to go into the running for some of those exclusive tickets. The Alumni Office does events throughout the year. There are also opportunities within the student body as well. So connecting in, depending on which campus you're with the Student Guild for the Gold Coast, and for those northern campuses, the Student Representative Council, SRC, they run a lot of events for students. And there's also sort of other opportunities throughout your degree. So just keeping an eye on that space. Also Career Hub, which is the space where you can make an appointment with a career consultant. We also have an events section on there, so you could have a look on there as well. So thank you, that was good. I hadn't mentioned about the events that we offer. So Caitlin's asking, what is the etiquette for connecting with people that you haven't met on LinkedIn? So I think if I've read that correctly, Caitlin, if you are talking about reaching out through LinkedIn to somebody, you can definitely do that. It is a public website, so people have their information, or there's a contact portal to use the messaging system of LinkedIn. So yeah, I mean, I have often done a reach out to people I haven't met before through LinkedIn, and so I would message them and say, you know, hi Caitlin, we haven't met before, but I am, you know, a career development consultant at Griffith University, and I've noticed that your career journey has taken you to wherever it might be. You know, I just wonder if we can connect. So yeah, definitely you can reach out if you haven't met them before. Just use some, you know, lovely messaging around the reason. I get a lot of requests, and maybe those of you who are also on LinkedIn, you might just get a request from somebody and you think, I don't know who this person is, and then maybe just found you. If you can put a message to it, it makes a whole lot more sense. And just again, being authentic. We haven't met before, but I've seen your career journey, or I can see your LinkedIn, and I'd love to connect with you. It means a lot more than just a, you know, sort of somebody putting through the request. So I hope that that's answered that for you, Caitlin. Elizabeth, how do I make and utilise a LinkedIn profile? Yes, well, we have resources available. So I'm happy for you to send me an email, or I can maybe pass it through Claire for her to share with everybody. But there are resources available on Learning at Griffith. There's a whole e-module that's being created on how to set up a LinkedIn profile and use it effectively. And we also can help one-on-one basis with people once you've set up your LinkedIn. Feel free to make an online appointment. An appointment. It's either online or face-to-face, and we can help you through that and help you with some tips on how to make it effective. It's a bit more of a personal type thing when we're having a look at what your career objectives are, but we can help you tailor that if that's some support that you need. So thank you for asking that question. Oh, and I'm going down. Samuel. Is it considered a red flag if we have no social media presence? Is it important to have one? Samuel, I don't think I can speak for everybody in this space, for like all employers or all people out there. I think that social media, my opinion would be that social media is pretty important these days, as we see the way people need to connect on other ways other than just face to face. And particularly being a global spaces can be difficult. So I don't think I'd like to say that it's a downside or a red flag per se, but I think you'd need to work around, well, how else are you going to connect with these people or find people to network in that space? So what's the top tip for mature age students who are working and want to move into new roles? Thank you, Anonymous. I was a mature age student too, and so my top tip for you would be to network. And I feel that's cliche in the topic we've just covered here, but I think moving into a new space, it's thinking, yeah, about networking. How are we going to meet people in those spaces? You know, considering our informational interviewing, finding people that we aspire to be like, or we're interested in finding out more about, seeing how did they get there. And I think, Anonymous, you'll probably find that there's many mature age students out there, and we've seen, you know, that the market sort of changed since, you know, this pandemic, with people who want to reskill, upskill, career changes, and all those kind of things that have come out of, you know, this new world of rethinking our reality and maybe our life path. So yeah, networking, I know it sounds like cliche there, but I think that would be my top tip. So Shannon, thank you for the great information. Do you have any advice on how to prioritise which and how much to do whilst networking? I tend to take on too much and then I start to burn out. Oh, Shannon, thank you for that. I think that's really important that we do think about that burnout too. Primarily, like we were saying, you've got your hat on as students at the moment, so we do want you to be, you know, getting those discipline specific skills and really sort of, you know, head down into what you're hoping to achieve. So this should never be, you know, your full-time job to go out and network constantly. Yeah, I think that's really important to make sure that, you know, you don't take on too much, but thinking about, you know, well, maybe prioritising the opportunities that are going to get you to the places that you'd like to get to. So maybe once a month you might do something, and I'm not too sure where you are in your degree, but I often will have students and I do a bit of a career action plan with them, or a employability skills action plan with them for wherever they are in their degree. And maybe it's once a month I'm going to, you know, hone in on this particular skill, and I'm going to build up some teamwork, and I might join a club or society. So I think, yeah, definitely important not to burn out with these, and just prioritise the opportunities as to what you're looking for. Okay, I'm going to take another sip while I read this one. Okay, I've done a lot of talking. So for Griffith Alumni networking events, do many students attend? As I don't want to stand out in the sense of being the only student amongst professors, etc. Anonymous, I was in that space before, so I'll tell you what I knew from back then. Things may change, but the alumni events are open for graduates. They're open for students who are coming out into that space as well. We do have some professors and some academics that attend, but primarily it is for alumni to network with alumni and with industry that may be, you know, part of the Griffith community. So you wouldn't, I wouldn't like to say that you, you wouldn't stand out in terms of, you know, walking around the room. We don't have, you know, particular name badges that say this person's only a student, and we would never do that to you anyway. So I think, yeah, there's such a variety of people there. So don't be discouraged about going while you're a student. If that opportunity presents itself, then it's there and it's open for you. Okay, so Anonymous, any questions on those concerned about privacy regarding LinkedIn, putting yourself out there? Anonymous, yes, it is putting yourself out there, and it's putting yourself out into that digital world. Again, digital footprints are permanent, and that's why we want to be really careful about what we do put out into that space. I would, my thoughts on this, I mean, LinkedIn is a professional space, so I don't use that for my sharing of things that I would with my friends. Privacy on that, yeah, I think I might sort of end it there, because I don't want to go too much into the privacy things. I think but also knowing that it is a public website and it can be, you know, seen by everybody. You can change some of the privacy on there if you want. You know, you can have your picture hidden unless people have connected with you. There are different functions within LinkedIn, but I'm not a LinkedIn professional, so I might leave that to just, you know, thinking around that space. Maybe you could do some more investigating and then let me know. So Maddie, what's your advice for someone who's about to apply for a graduate nursing position? It's incredibly overwhelming and competitive. How do I make myself stand out? Maddie, I'd love if you would like to make an appointment with us. We'd be happy to talk to you about that, because that's obviously quite personal around what you're looking to achieve. So if you'd like to make an appointment, we have those consultation times and we can help you with that process, because yeah, it is competitive and we don't want it to be an overwhelming thing for you. So yeah, we've got professionals in that space that can help you, so feel free to use those services. Now, apologies if I get your name incorrect here, but Luna Aeneas. Hello, I was wondering what sort of attitude I should have when approaching museums and galleries for collaboration and hosting workshops. As an artist, confidence isn't my strongest quality. Any advice? Great question, Luna. Again, maybe a personal one. I'd be happy to talk to you about this in person, because it's yeah, I think it's around building confidence and those kind of things. We can talk about that if you would like, as an individual type thing. Brooke, posting relevant information on your LinkedIn will have people come and connect with you. Also, I post about a recent event I helped host at the university, and also about attending the alumni lunch, and lots of new connections. Yay, fantastic. Great work, Brooke. That's what it's there for, isn't it? And I think, popping things out to others and not always expecting the information to come to us. That's a great way to get connections without, or passively get connections, I suppose, people coming to you. So good on you, that's great. Natasha, is it okay to have a LinkedIn profile combined with a paid work professional profile and a student profile in a different profession? Oh, so I'm not too sure if I'm reading this correctly in terms of one LinkedIn profile with 3 identities. And if I am reading that correctly in those 3 identities, yeah, absolutely fine to have all in one space. I'm not sure if I've read that right though, but yeah, it would be how you sort of define each of those parts of this, these identities on your LinkedIn page. So yeah, happy for you to reach out to me if I haven't got that right. Tim, thanks for the great information, which I think is quite practical. Do you have any advice on how to approach people on LinkedIn without being seen too demanding, or should we be genuine to our purpose? Tim, yes, thank you. Well, thank you for saying thank you. Advice on approaching people without being too demanding. I think that's that authenticity, that genuine interest of connecting with somebody. But yeah, if there's a purpose, I think that's also important. Is your purpose to connect because you want to hear more about people? Is your purpose to connect because there's an opportunity within their workplace? Maybe a case by case with that one. So I'm being told this is my last question. So what are some of the key defining points that will help me identify when a professional relationship is not worth pursuing? And when that stage occurs, what's the best way to close up on that relationship? Okay, thank you. Thank you, last question person. Wow, what a question to end on. So there's no name on this one. So what are some of the things that we need to, when it's not worth pursuing? I think knowing what your goal is, what you're hoping to achieve by the connection with somebody. Are your expectations being met? And we can only obviously talk about ourselves. If there's somebody else's needs are not being met, then that's up to them. That's on their onus to sort of, do the same, to pull out. So if your needs aren't being met, if your goals aren't being met, your expectations, then yes, it's probably not worth pursuing. We don't want to sort of get to that burnout, overwhelm stage. So, if this network or this particular connection isn't working, that's okay. Pulling out's fine. You could be honest with people, depending on the, maybe it's a case by case, and it's a, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate how much you've given to me. You can close that part off now. Or, depending on the conversation, you might just not need to message. It's sort of ended itself. So I hope I've answered that to our last question poster. So that was my last question. Thank you so much again for everything and for having me on the session. I hope that I've answered your questions, and I hope that the session's given you some good understanding around networking, how you can use it, and some tips for upcoming events. So I'm going to hand back to Claire. I'll stop sharing. Actually, sorry, I'll just mute myself and hand back to Claire.
Thanks so much, Jenny. I really hope everybody got many great takeaways from this session, like I did. I especially liked Jenny's quote about a stranger is just a friend that you haven't met yet. I think that takes away any pressure or potential anxiety that you might have about speaking to someone that you haven't met yet. I also like the way Jenny drew on her own experience about overcoming anxiety. I think we can all identify